I'll give it 1 minute.
Awesome.
Bob, what is this? Episode number 5? I lost count. Yeah.
I lost count as well.
All right. Hello, and welcome to this month's programming of the 0 to 1 show. We got a great lineup for you today where we have the 3 founders of FutureTech Holdings. And we're going to hear from them on how they got started within the Filecoin ecosystem. I think they have a really interesting story to tell on how they started as individuals, but yet found each other to realize a better future for the ecosystem. So excited to dive in and get to know the team from FutureTech Holdings and all the things that they've been up to since joining the ecosystem not too long ago. With me, as always, is my esteemed co-host, Mr. Bob Dubois. How are we doing today?
Bright and shiny like always. Yeah.
Yes. I feel the energy. All right, let's get to know our esteemed guest for the day. We'll start with Nathan. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Nathan. So yeah, I've had the opportunity to chat a few more times, on the topic. So it's great to be here, and thanks for having me.
All right, Jonathan, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us, Porter and Bob. My name is Jonathan Harold. I'm the CEO of FutureTech Holdings, and I'm excited to share our story here with you all today.
And last but certainly not least, Nate, how's it going today?
Good morning. Amazing. Well caffeinated and excited to share our story. And it's an honor to be here talking to you guys.
All right. Well, honestly, why I was so excited to have you guys on is because of the journey that each of you have gone on individually, and then how that translated into a group journey that resulted in the formation of an entirely new organization. And that's really, I think, what the listeners want to know about. And so Jonathan, I'm going to kick it off with you. Tell us about your origin story on how you came to find Filecoin, and how did you start? How did you get to where you are today?
Yeah, I'd love to. I'm really thrilled to have the opportunity to share my story with all of you today. I found myself in my apartment in like 2019. So before mainnet launched, on a rainy day, thinking about all the ways that I could build something groundbreaking, like we all do on a rainy day. And it seemed like all of these large companies like Amazon, Microsoft, and Google had all the cards when it came to storing and scaling data. And I knew there had to be more options. So when I was doing research, that's when I came across IPFS and Filecoin. And the idea of a peer-to-peer network with a mission to onboard humanity's most important information really fascinated me. The problem was I had no idea how to get started. I was still in school. I have a technical degree in IT, but like if you have experience in IT, there's a huge range of people in skill sets. To set up your own node, it's quite an undertaking for a technical person, even an experienced technical person, which I found. So I started like most of us do with the documentation, and that can be a bit overwhelming, but it's come a long way since then, and it was a great resource for me to get started. Then I found myself in consulting, and I still couldn't get this idea of Filecoin and IPFS out of my mind. I watched the chart go up and down, and I stayed up to date and was looking for opportunities to join. It can be scary when you see the movement like that, but it really I was focused on the technology and the partnerships that were entering the ecosystem, and which really excited me. So I felt like I had to take that leap of faith and join the ecosystem. I came across ESPA right at the right time. So I applied and interviewed and ended up joining ESPA and was in cohort 4 last year. But before that, when I was exploring, when found ESPA, came across all the different sponsors like Seagate and AMD, and reached out to them just to see if I could have a conversation and learn about what that was like and the experience of what equipment do I need to run this operation. And when I started looking into it, it came to my attention that sealing is a huge pain point for many people, and it can be costly and a pain to run. I figured that's might be something I need to look into. And it was funny because one of the people at Seagate, I'm from Canton, Ohio, and they're like, "Oh, do you work for Aligned?" I'm like, "Who's that?" And they're just like, "Oh, Aligned's out of Canton, Ohio, and they do sealing as a service." It's like, "Huh, interesting." And I saw that they were going to be at ESPA too, so that put the connection there. And I was able to meet Svetley when I went to ESPA. But my journey to ESPA in October, I was walking around. I really just had an LLC, and I knew no one in the ecosystem. I had no idea what this week was going to be like for me. And embark on this journey to Las Vegas. It's my first time to Vegas, and I was wandering through the Park MGM, was buzzing. There was a bunch of guys in suits walking around, and I made eye contact with someone who also appeared to be lost and in the wrong spot. And he introduced himself, and his name was Azur. And I got to know Azur throughout my time at ESPA, and we ate breakfast together that day. And it came to my attention that he was very technical. He has a very strong technical background, and with mining other cryptocurrencies, and he was looking to repurpose some equipment that he already had. And we ended up setting up an operation together, because we stayed in touch after this 4-week program, and I used the connections I made there with Dharma and Aligned and Azur and the greater ESPA community, and was able to stand up a node with a partner I met without having to run my own equipment. But with that being said, go ahead.
Yeah, Jonathan, I remember meeting you at that ESPA.
Yeah.
And I walked away from our first conversation going, man, this guy's got a big uphill battle. No money, barely any experience, no connections. It's just like I sat there going, is this guy going to make it? Like, almost like, what is he doing here?
Yeah.
And I'm so excited to have you on the program today, because here we are less than 9 months later, and look at where you are. But I also think that's a testament to the opportunities. Like, if you're committed and dedicated and you have a vision for what this could be, look, within 9 months, you're sitting here talking about your story within the ecosystem. And full applause for getting off the blocks the way you did, because frankly, I didn't think it was possible.
Yeah, I didn't know what was going to happen. I mean, it was like truly a leap of faith in making those. Like, ESPA was truly a huge accelerator for me. The biggest thing for me was meeting people. I didn't know where to start in the ecosystem. I didn't join. Like, I remember meeting you, and one of the questions was like top 5 apps, and Slack wasn't even on my list. And like a month after that meeting, I think Slack was in the bottom of my my main bar of apps on my iPhone. So I thought that was an interesting, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so John, I want you to, I know you got more of your story, but I do want to hear the similar story from Nate and Nathan, to bring this all together to see exactly how the three of you came together. So Nate, how did you find yourself here today?
Yeah, of course. So for me, I initially think peer-to-peer networks is something super powerful, and it's not something new. Like, if you remember, like the BitTorrents and all, it's still going on. I think that was like super important, a way for people to kind of share information. Then I came across actually IPFS, and the reason I came across IPFS, it wasn't very long ago. Around 2020, I'm originally from Iraq. So around 2020, there was like a lot of social issues was happening. A lot of human rights violations was occurring. And so, like, because the internet is so centralized in the country, they shut it off. And so for me, I was trying to find a way that can help humanity at scale. And what can I do? So I got introduced to IPFS originally, and then I heard about Filecoin. And then the idea was awesome. I really wanted to dig deeper and learn more. So I did apply for the ESPA, and it was amazing. there is just a pool of people that are like very with deep experiences, and all the challenges, all the nights that I was awake trying to think of solutions. It was just too challenging to be done by one person. So through ESPA, I met awesome people with very like-minded, and we got to talking, and then we shared that, well, how do we want to structure the future? What can we do now? And how can we ensure the network can thrive? And basically was our responsibility towards the community. And then we came into agreement about those topics. And once that happened, we started working together, and it's been an amazing journey.
Awesome. Put a pin in that one as well. Nathan, same question. How did we get to this point?
All right, yeah. So I am definitely on the opposite end of the spectrum with the guys where it comes to techie. I am hardcore into that. I was one of those guys that was making 2 Bitcoin a day back in 2012. I've been in the ecosystem a long time, in the crypto ecosystem, doing a lot of software development, all kinds of wild stuff, hacker background, yada, 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 right? So how did I kind of come across Filecoin? Well, being around in the space so long, I started to see kind of patterns, and I was recognizing that every time crypto winter would hit, some projects would succeed, and then others would fail. But bar none, those that did make it through crypto winter would just rocket to the top, and they were just super successful. And as things have started to evolve over the past 10 years, what I've noticed is that the chains, the projects that provide real world value are really the ones that make it, and I see a future there. And in that, I started noticing, okay, there's this concept of Web3 showing up and whatnot, and I started looking around, looking for projects, and I think it was last May, yeah. I ran across Filecoin, and I remembered seeing it several years back when there were notices going out saying, "Hey, get involved," with the with the beta, this and that and that. But years went by, and it kind of fell by the roadside. So when I saw this, I'm going, "Hey, things have actually happened. There's some traction," and I kind of dived into it to learn more, because I'm thinking, okay, this looks like a project that's focused on providing real world value and has established itself in its track record. So it really caught my interest. But as all things in the space, I want to try to wrap my head around things before diving in. And it was really kind of nuts and whatnot. So I didn't realize how important it was. Actually, at the time, I didn't realize it, but in hindsight, the connections with the ESPA group were invaluable. I remember my first call, actually pre that, I got to jump on with Shrek, and we had a good conversation. He kind of directed me to the right people that needed to go. But this stuff was so wildly crazy. I couldn't believe that even someone that has done so much technical nerdy stuff, it took me like 6 months just to wrap my head around what the heck was going on. So yeah, that kind of set the stage. I was 2 months later, after learning about this project, I was headed out to Vegas for ESPA 3. I had already standed up a node onto production. It was kind of one of those things where we're just going to go hot and hard. I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm willing to get out there, and I'll leave it off it wasn't until I came back to talk at ESPA 4 this past was it January, that I ended up running into Jonathan and Nate. And it was funny because Nate ran up to me in the hallway after I gave my talk about what we were doing. And he's like, "Oh my gosh, I was so excited. We need to do stuff." And I'm kind of like, my first reaction, I'll be honest, was like, "Oh, okay. All right, cool. Yeah. All right, sure. We'll talk later." And I didn't expect to hear from this guy ever again. And I was like, "All right, well, if he's serious, we'll follow up and whatnot." But he was, and it was amazing, and just seeing how things came together. You couldn't have planned it. Same thing with Jonathan. I saw he and Azar, they had some very valuable experience, and it was when I saw all these pieces come together that I realized, oh my gosh, some of us are really struggling. And I think we'll probably be going into the challenges in a second, but I saw that, oh my gosh, we are all coming at this from different angles where we have this experience, and we can really fill these gaps for each other. So it was just beautiful.
So let's double click on that, because, again, you all have diverse backgrounds and experience and expertise. So Jonathan, as you dove into Filecoin, tell me more about the blockers that you were facing or the gaps that you identified in your own skill set.
Yeah, so like I said, I have a degree in IT with a cybersecurity concentration and a master's in business administration, but it's still really difficult to wrap your head around a lot that goes into this, whether it's on the technical side or the business side, or running your own business, which is another thing on top of that we were trying to do, or that I was trying to do when I was getting started. But so along with everything involved with how the network works, there's a lot that needs to be done technically, and it doesn't make sense for anyone to run a node. The equipment was expensive, which was something I was running into. It's like, okay, do I outsource it? Do I rent it? How does that work? And there was a lot of different challenges and a lot of it came down to pricing and not having enough money to really get going.
Nate, same question.
I think I can relate to what Jonathan is mentioning. To start, the infrastructure is very costly. Equipment is not cheap. The other challenge, it was the technical aspect of things, because I talked to a lot of people that are involved in the community or just in data infrastructure in general. And there is about 2,000 ways to cut this cookie. And it was everybody, and I guess that's what the beauty of open source technologies. There's no way of doing things. And then for me, it was very time consuming and trying to figure out and do like a little bit of a research and development as far as like hardware configuration. What do I need to run? Who do I talk to? There was not one expertise, somebody I can trust with that. They can handle all of that without taking so much out of my time and do what I like to do. I like connecting people. This is what I'm really good at, and I love it. So it was just natural for me to kind of outsource it or find that help within the community. But I think as a community, all these challenges could be addressed. And this is, I think, what's the best things about ESPA and kind of about this community. You can come to the community and ask any questions, and it's not going to take asking 3 or 4 people. Probably the first person you're going to ask, they're going to direct you to a person that can give you a very unique answer and give you the information you're seeking. So that was the challenge for me.
So Nathan, I mean, you said yourself, you came from the technical background. Where did you find gaps in your experience that you thought people like Jonathan or Nate could help you out?
Yeah, let's see. So let's see on the technical side, just to touch on that before I get it, because really my challenges, I think, were more on the non-technical side in my shoes. But from a knowledge dump, because of the network being so young as it is, and it being in a growing phase, documentation and understanding to get clarity on how things are working technologically and all the steps and everything that need to happen, it's very, very complex, and finding the information is kind of difficult. So unless you're going to basically sit around searching online all the time, having connections in with the Slack channel groups like with ESPA and whatnot were just invaluable, where I could reach out and ask these simple questions. Before that, I had access to that. There was one video that Benjamin put out there. I think it was like part 2 about like standing up your own miner. That was incredible because it was the first documentation I found that anybody had walked through all the steps and some of the nuances, everything that's happening in the whole lifespan of starting a miner and the ceiling and all these things. It would help me really get my head truly around where the code base was and some of the things that need to happen. So that was super helpful. The connections with the Slack was super helpful. But what I recognized from doing past businesses that I've run is that you can't have somebody that does everything, and you really need the aspect of, okay, who's going to handle the soft side, who's going to be able to handle marketing and sales and those other angles. And I knew that that's really not I can be dangerous in there, but that's not really where my strength was. And I saw that what we've got here is so complex with the Filecoin ecosystem that having these elements together were super critical. So I didn't get to that point maybe until maybe December. So about maybe 5 months in. is when I started saying, okay, I'm getting my head around the technical aspects of it. Now we need to start looking at how we're going to do this go-to-market stuff, and how do we really bring these other pieces in. And that's when I really started contemplating. So even that jumping out to giving that talk as before in January, that was kind of a step of faith for me, because I'm kind of going, all right, well, it's just me on the tech side. I'm going to go to this conference to give a talk. I don't really have any expectations coming out of this. I'm just going to go for it. So I gave this talk, and I didn't know what to expect, and any whatnot. And it was as a result of going there when I was able to make the connections with these guys, and that really kind of started that cascade. And I had already had other conversations with, Seagate, Supermicro. So again, those are all techie things, right? So it was, all right, we really have to start building this network to figure out how we start pushing out, right? So
I can only imagine, like, what I picture from what you all have described is you're in Las Vegas, you're sitting down all together having a coffee, and then you must have had this moment where you had this shared vision of what the future could look like based on where the ecosystem is. And tell me about, like, the discovery of that gap, and that moment where you talk through this for the first time, where probably, from what the sounds of it is, you all left with an aha moment that propelled you to continue to work together. Tell me about that conversation. What was the shared vision of the future?
So anecdotally, the first time all of us were in a room together, well, actually we're together, was because we formally came together in April. And then there was a conference in May. And then again, it was like, all right, we're just going to go for it. So we went to this a channels conference in May. And we're in a car together it was the first time we'd ever all been together. We're in a car picking up Nate from the airport, and all three of us are in there headed towards the hotel. So before then, we had been, okay, we got this piece here, we got this piece here, okay, and we'd all come to recognize that there was value in the connection points. But it wasn't even until like maybe a month or two later where we're finally all sitting in a room together. So I'll let guys share more of what they saw and how that kind of came together. But I love that, because really it wasn't probably what we'd expect in a traditional sense of how things happen.
Yeah, I couldn't have put it together the way it went together. I mean, so like me and Azure went out and presented at ESPA, and that was really a leap of faith for me. It was broke and really, I mean, just made little progress. And Azure was going to go present. And he's like, why don't you come with me and talk too? So, okay. We're sitting there, and I meet Nathan Dragon the first day. We're just sitting there working on a presentation, and he ended up coming and sitting by us, and we start chatting, and that was our first connection. And then after I presented the next day, Nate came up to me and started talking with me. But really it all started later on when we stayed in touch after. Like, I was still trying to build my own storage provider and working with Azure, and I'd reach out to Nathan and let him know where I was at, like different contacts. I think part of it was I was like bombarding him with messages like, oh, I just heard from this contact and heard this, and like, or reach out to this person, they're working on this interesting thing. So really, and then same thing with Nate is we would stay in touch on different pieces, and it really just came together where we realized that it's so hard to do it by yourself. And I don't think you can do anything by yourself. It's stronger when you have a team of people all working towards the same thing. We realized all of the pain points it takes to be a storage provider because we tried it. And we came together to really build solutions that make that process easier for anyone else looking to join the ecosystem. And that's exactly what we're working to do.
So yeah, and I'm really curious, why infrastructure as a service? What is it that the network needed that you saw from your experience?
Yeah, so what, again, putting my hat on from other businesses, any experiences, any business has to have an identity, and they have to stand out in some way. And I realized coming into the space, you can't just say, well, I'm an SP and that be it, right? So we started kind of going down this journey after we started working together to say, okay, what is it that makes us unique? wasn't make us stand out from anybody else. And going through this, we started identifying, okay, we can help this industry with this area of, of building them a solution or this and that. But then we sat back and I was like, well, wait a minute. We have decades and decades of enterprise experience, hardware experience. We've been doing this crypto stuff for ages. And we recognize that in the ecosystem, there are huge pain points with people starting up SPs and getting them online. And it just kind of clicked. I'm like, oh my gosh, wait a minute. We can handle all the technical side and make that simple for people, easy for them, and help them focus. Like, for example, like with Nate and Jonathan. All right, so they're really good on going out and connecting with people and kicking butt, closing deals, but they really are struggling on the technical side. So it became, aha, wait, we can short circuit this. We can cut out all this extra overhead for expense, the costing, all these things, the struggle with the runway for trying to get online and all that fear. It's so wild when you're thinking about it, when you're typing a command to send Phil from one location to the other, and you're going, wait, did I fat finger the address? I don't want to just send $1 million worth of Phil to the wrong address. There's fear, there's all these crazy components. So we're kind of like, all right, let's extrapolate all that away. And I think that's where it really started to kind of connect and be going, oh my gosh, this has real value. Not only are we tapping our skills, but we're going to be able to help the community grow. Those that are existing, those guys that are currently struggling, but also shorting that on-ramp for new people coming into the ecosystem, right?
So question for Nate and Jonathan, given your background's area of expertise, what do you see that infrastructure as a service unlocks for network growth going forward? Like, what is the real opportunity that this is going to unlock for the ecosystem?
Okay, I'll start. I think coming from my angle at the time, I had something that I was very passionate about. I was trying to accomplish, but the infrastructure piece and the software was challenging. So it was very hindering where I wanted to go. That's like how I kind of ended up like working towards just connecting with the community, and try to give them a solution that, because I've been in that shoes. It was very hard trying to figure it all out. And for me, it's like, okay, this is so natural. We all came together and this is like working out and we are doing amazing things together. How can we make it super easy for the next person that's going to be in ESPA or just watching this panel? It's like, what can be done? And then for us, it's like, okay, this is where we come together and also give to the community, because the success of the network also, like, we have stakes in it. For me, it's personal. It's decentralizing the internet and data. It's not rocket science for me. I'll do whatever I can to help decentralize that.
For me, I really realized the complexities that I really was unaware of what it takes to run equipment at an enterprise scale. I mean, dealing with data centers, dealing with vendors, trying to predict rack space or trying to predict like electricity costs and project out what your growth rate is. It's a lot, especially when you have other parts of the business that you need to work on. So by removing that aspect of it and putting it in our infrastructure and taking that technical component away, it really allows people to focus on learning Filecoin, learning the ecosystem, and bringing real data onto the network, which is a lot of what we're trying to do here. And we're going to make it easier for you to onboard and just get up and going, because it's a process. It's a pain. It's a learning curve, no matter where you're starting. And our goal with this is to really make it easier by eliminating those technical steps that if you're not technical, that you'd have to take.
So, interesting point. I don't know if you all knew this, but Bob is setting up his own storage provider business. Bob, great technical expert. That's why he works at Protocol Labs, because he's one of the best in the business. Tell, with someone like Bob, who's getting into this, starting and building, setting up his infrastructure, what should he consider about infrastructure as a service that he may not know? All right, Nathan, that's to you. Yeah, I see you smiling and dancing.
Well, I was gonna wait for the guys to see if they kind of came up with something there off the cuff. So yeah, really cost. Number one thing is the cost. Whether it's the purchasing of the equipment, whether it's the concept that, hey, guess what, you're gonna have to do a refresh on that in 3 to 5 years, or the fact that you're gonna have to pay somebody to operate that if you're not technically savvy. So these are massive, massive upfront costs in our ecosystem here. So one of the great values, because it's kind of hard for me to kind of not pivot or kind of compare those two. One of the great values is to integrating with a hosting group is that it's able to free up a lot of that capital, so that instead of sinking $100,000 plus into equipment that you now have to go and find deals to then seal that up, you can apply that $100,000 towards going out and pursuing those deals, whether it's sales personnel, whether it's for fill. You're able to grow your operational expenses at the rate that you're actually bringing in data, as opposed to massive upfront costs you have to sink and then struggle to then close that gap. That's probably the number one thing that I would say that you really, the pros and cons for those, but hands down, that cost is such a massive a challenge, and then maintaining it.
That is exactly also what got covered last time by Stu in this webinar. So looking at your capex and opex is indeed the major factor in making a good business case. So my case is a bit different. I'm more on the solo miner, hobbyist, not hobbyist. I mean, I want to get my hands dirty with the whole stack and with the software and stuff. So that's more my take on it. But if you're building a serious business with 3 or 4 people on this, you better look at your cost profile. Yeah.
100% agree. Yeah, exactly.
One of the themes in the storage provider community, especially over the last year, and I think is a theme that you guys are tapping into, is the notion of specialization, where again, you guys came together because you needed to find a way to specialize on a specific value add that each individual brought to the table, and you're finding a way to deploy that unique skill set. How do you guys view specialization, and how do you view specialization within Filecoin today?
I think specialization is really important, because it's one thing what I noticed when I first joined, it's a lot of people just trying to store data. There's when you're first starting out and there's nothing to really go off of, it's very easy to be like, oh yeah, I'm just going to go store cold data, but that doesn't really differentiate you or do anything to kind of set you up for long-term success. So really, we looked at this as an opportunity to, one, grow our Filecoin operations, but also lower the barrier to entry for others, to give them an opportunity to start and grow theirs. Yeah.
I think for us also, like something that hasn't been brought up, and it's accessibility. And that could be as easy as the internet. There is certain places around the world today, they don't have the internet that the network needs. And then if they want to tap into this market, it's going to be very hard just having the internet connection by itself. So we kind of like at a very unique position where we want to enable those people. So that's where the infrastructure come in, is trying to reach the people that don't have that accessibility around the world. Whether it was the connection, or it was the expertise, or it was the hardware piece or the software. We're kind of trying to build this super easy one button for anybody can just enter without any headaches, trying to get all the pay points, trying to take it out of the equation.
Nate, quick follow-on question.
Yeah.
How long will it be till we have an organization within the borders of Iraq storing data on Filecoin?
There is actually groups that's already happening, but I'm not at a place to disclose any of this right now. But this is why it's amazing, because there are certain parts, not necessarily Iraq or anywhere it could be, there be amazing use cases for this technology, and is being put to a good use. So it's already happening, actually, of
I can't wait to learn more.
course.
All right. I did want to get you guys out on one question each. And it's really speaking to the audience. This audience, as a reminder, are people who are just entering the Filecoin ecosystem or are just thinking about entering the Filecoin ecosystem. So if you had one statement to leave this audience with based on your experience, what would it be and why?
For
I'll
me,
go first. Okay, Jonathan, you can take it.
I was just gonna say ask for help. That's the biggest thing for me. It's I get stuck where a lot of people get stubborn and you think you can do everything by yourself, but the moment you ask for help and reach out to other people, everyone in this ecosystem is so friendly and willing to have a conversation. It's kind of incredible. Once you actually tap into these resources, they're very open and wanting to have these conversations with you. So whether it's me or anyone else, feel free to reach out.
I would just tell the audience that if this is something that interests you, don't waste time trying to think, trying to complex. Just go for it. It's a very good community. You're gonna get a lot of support. We're very collaborative as a community. So please, just like, if it scares you, just jump in. And it's a very noble cause to work towards. And you'll be welcomed here.
Yeah, so yeah, I agree. Chiming in with the getting connected is huge. Hands down, the ESPA group has been life-changing, really has. Now, on the execution side, before you start going in and setting up equipment and signing agreements and all that, I would highly recommend doing due diligence to make sure that you are signing up the right stuff, that you understand what you're getting yourself into, and having those good conversations. So, but what you really need to be connected in with the ESPA group in order to answer those questions, right? I think it'll save you a lot of time, a lot of effort, and actually help you launch harder and faster than you could have if you just kind of winged it on your own. It's just an invaluable tool.
Awesome. Bob, you've been sitting silently in the wings. What
Sure.
questions do you have for the group from FutureTech today?
Yeah, well, I mean, if you're looking at the differentiation you're building today, without going into the details of it, but I mean, or are you planning on more like extending on that outside of infrastructure as a service? Like the other pain point or a potential pain point for new storage providers apart from infrastructure is how to get deals, how to get data, so, or you're planning on also building tooling or platforms around that?
So I think the answer to that is going to be more or less less around a technical solution and more about a relationship solution. And I think one of the cool things about the infrastructure hosting service that we have is that it's part of that is we're building relationships and we're connecting more people together. So as a natural byproduct of that, what happens is people come to us and SPA says, hey, I've got extra data, or we need to store copies, and we say, hey, well, guess what? We've got SPX over here. Okay, hey, you guys talk. All right, bam. Next thing you know, we're building those relationships and those peers. And as we are growing, is that it's more of just like a natural communication that's going to be happening, where people are going to be asking, having those conversations, which will be then kind of like that natural inflow of new native data coming into the network, and being able to kind of connect it and peer, even with other projects that we're talking about. So I won't go into that, but with the infrastructure components, we're connecting with other software solutions in the ecosystem, baking that in so it's natively supported. So we're now actually building relationships with other projects in the community, and that's by again, another byproduct of that relationship thing is the data's coming in. It's all kind of cyclical. So the whole old school concept of doing corporate sales deals, I don't think works in Web 3.0 and what we're doing. And really it comes down to this community thing that we're talking about, building these relationships, giving, not with the expect of saying, well, I'm going to give something in order to get, but that natural giving and supporting it by itself will then cause those people that are giving to get stuff back, for the network to grow.
Yeah, makes sense.
Where can people find you all on the internet?
We're on LinkedIn, Twitter, or you can go to our website, which is FutureTechHoldings.com.
With dashes in between each of those words. The LinkedIn is just FutureTech Holdings. Feel free to reach out and connect with me on LinkedIn as well. Be happy to chat.
Awesome. If you are tuning in for the first time, there's plenty of ways to get engaged with this amazing community that the team has referenced today. You can follow us on Twitter, participate on Slack. I will say that the documentation has gotten much better from when Nathan first looked at our Filecoin documentation, thanks to the efforts of Bob. Be sure to check out our revised Filecoin docs, much more clear and intuitive on how to get started as a Filecoin storage provider. And as always, if you're ready to take the next step and really get indoctrinated into the community, as every guest has told you before, there's no better place to do so than by participating in ESPA. It happens every quarter in Las Vegas. It is a once-in-a-lifetime experience that hopefully you feel compelled to participate in. So, thank you to my guests. What a great conversation. I'm so excited to just watch you guys from the sidelines and see how far, how fast you have come. And here you are today with a new product out in the market based on infrastructure as a service. I encourage you all to check out Project Overlord, the name of their IaaS solution for Filecoin, if you are so inclined. It is a manifestation of all the themes and principles that you've heard throughout this call. Next month, tune in. We will have a special guest, Rich Van Dyson from Steel Dome, where we talk about what is required to sell to Web 2. Should be quite the conversation. Bob, thank you as always. FutureTech Holdings, thank you. Appreciate your time.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Always. And thank you all for joining for another episode of 0 to 1. See you next month.